Hey, what's up, everybody? And welcome back to the In a Crowded Room podcast, which I just want to say that I am so happy to have uploaded a new podcast for all of you. As many of you know, I have been busting my butt to finish 74 minutes, which we got a lot to talk about, guys. But before we do, I just want to say thank you. I know a lot of people say, I have the best, fans and supporters in the world, and it's become like a cliche thing that everybody says, and probably rightfully so. But I really want to thank you guys and just let you know how supportive you guys have been across the board and how awesome it's been to experience that. As you guys know, I am a true independent filmmaker, and we'll get into what that actually means in a second. But, on a big picture, what it means is, I do the job of many, many people to make a film. And at times, being a filmmaker can seem like the most impossible battle. The process of making a film, I've always said this, the process of making a film is only outdone by the process of releasing one, because they are two separate animals that just involve so much emotional capital. If you're like me and you're out there and you're an artist, or if you're a perfectionist of any kind, you know how hard it is to let something go out into the world. My partner Thomas, who again I mention him a lot, he's such an intelligent guy, but the one place that he and I have always, well, there's many places, but the one place for sure that we've always kind of connected with is we have this thing we say, the work, the work, the work. We live in a time where just releasing a bunch of stuff has kind of taken the place of releasing something good. And I've always been someone who definitely believes in quality over quantity. So when it comes to 74 minutes, it seems like, on my end, it seems like some, force of nature has been working against this film since the beginning. And that is why I'm so excited to be where I'm at right now with the film. But if I go back and look at the history of this, let's start with how 74 Minutes came to be a film I was going to make. You guys know I do events all over the U.S., and we've been up in Canada and Australia. And my attendees are awesome. And I always do these post kind of event meet and greets. And the number one thing I consistently heard, because we would do evidence presentations, is people would say, you should make a film just about all of your evidence since, the beginning to now. And I had always had this idea in my head because I knew it was a great idea. And I've always been that way when it comes to picking films that I want to make. It's actually not a complicated process. If I hear it, the idea, and I would want to see it immediately, like the concept of what it is, then it's a green light. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of things that I want to see, but when I hear a good idea, I know a good idea. And right before I announced, 2 years ago now, that I was going to make 74 Minutes, it was after we were in Dallas. I think it was either a tour or a show, but there was a gal who came up and talked to me. Her name is Michelle, a wonderful girl, and she said it. She said, you should just do this. You should just put this out there because nobody else has done this. And I had never thought about that when she said nobody else has done this. And I'm like, is that true? Has nobody put out a documentary that covers all of the paranormal evidence that they've captured? And specifically, not all of it, but like the most compelling pieces. And it dawned on me that nobody had ever done it that I knew of, which was all the more reason that I wanted to do it. But there's pros and cons with that. I mean, as artists, I've always said this too, we're all kind of borrowing from somebody. Like, if I remember a long time ago, someone pointed out that they thought my editing style was similar to Oliver Stone's. Totally true. Natural Born Killers blew my mind, probably influenced me more than any other film that I've seen in regards to editing and the look and the feel. Um, and I wasn't hurt by that when someone said it because I knew they weren't saying that I sat down and, stroke by stroke copied, what this person's doing, but that it had profoundly affected me because I liked how it looked. I liked how it felt. Uh, so when I was, thinking about making 74 minutes, I was like, man, if I'm going to make a film that nobody has ever made, what's kind of hard about that is you don't have anything to reference. And I was like, this would be amazing because there's been so many years covered. Like some of the earliest evidence that's in this film, it's from like 1992. And, it goes all the way up to there's evidence from 2019 that's in this film. So, there's a big stretch. It's almost 30 years that it covers. Um, but my initial thought was, well, we'll just jam every single piece of evidence that I have in this thing. But then I started going, you know what, though? This can start to feel clippy, And and now I know there's going to be some of that involved because it's a compilation film, but I still want to, for each clip, I still wanted to tell a small story. I wanted this to be a collection of small stories that told a bigger story. Now, I realize this also is not a typical three-act, you have your opening and your dilemma and your protagonist and your antagonist and then, the hero's rescue and like all that type of stuff. You throw that all out the window because we're talking about a documentary and now we're talking about a documentary that no one's ever done before. And again, that could be a wonderful thing or it could be the kiss of death. And when it comes to independent filmmaking, every film that I make is so important because it's going to control the next 2 to 3 years of my life in regard to marketing and promotion and what people think of me as a filmmaker and a storyteller. And, when you're a major studio, you can just, afford to have 90% of your films be flops and then 10%, makes you all your revenue. When you're an independent filmmaker, you can't do that. And, it's the perfect time for me to answer questions about independent filmmaking too, which I just got this letter 2 days ago from somebody who is kind of seeing me, battle to get this film out right now. And they had a bunch of questions about independent filmmaking. And I kind of realized as I was reading it that this person, his name is John, who wrote me, and hello, John, if you're listening. I realized that maybe he was younger, and I realized that maybe he didn't quite understand what independent filmmaking is. First off, when you hear Quentin Tarantino as like the best independent filmmaker, that couldn't be more misleading. And God bless Tarantino, he's one of the best to ever do it. But what that meant in the beginning, independent filmmaking in the beginning meant a person went out himself and used his own funds or raised funds himself, made his movie, then released it himself, or hopefully sold it to a studio. But everything was theirself. You do it all on your own. Quentin Tarantino knew all the right people in the beginning, and his earliest films were all funded by Miramax. To the tune of, I think Reservoir Dogs was done pretty cheap. I want to say between 500,000 to $1 million. And that sounds funny to say that because 500,000 to $1 million to someone like me to make a movie is an ungodly amount of money. I'll give you Gone with the Wind for $500,000, but I think, Pulp Fiction was somewhere around, I think 11 or 12 million, and it went up to 20 million once they got Bruce Willis involved. But it was all studio money. And the independent tag stayed with Quentin because he independently wrote the script. The studio didn't hire people, they didn't come up with the ideas. Miramax just found this genius that was an incredible scriptwriter and, turned out to be an incredible filmmaker at a time where being independent was hip. And they used that tag, independent, to basically say it's hip and it's cool. Like that's what independent, became known to be as. But a true independent filmmaker does every one of the jobs. When you see these behind the scenes, or I used to love Project Greenlight, the show on HBO, where they would find somebody and they would compete in this competition to make a film for $1 million, and the budget would always go to 3, 4, or 5 million. But when you see a set and there's like 40 people running around, or when you see post and there's 10 editors and there's, mixers and so, like all of those jobs are very real. And you need people for all those jobs to do a film at scale. But if you're going to be an independent filmmaker that does it on its own, a true independent filmmaker, you have to do all those jobs. One person has to do all of those jobs. And when it's, you're dedicating, every ounce of your time to it, when you have things that come up like a doctor's meeting, or you get sick, you get COVID, or if something happens and you have to go to the dentist, or you get a meeting that comes up, I don't have the luxury of going, okay, I have to handle these other things. Let me just, kick this up to floor 13 and let my team of editors handle it. Or I can't do the sound mixing today because Laura has something she has to do on Zoom. So I'll just fire it over to floor 8 and have, you know what I mean? Like there's, so everything from graphic design of the graphics you see to, like I said, editing, color correction, tilting, opticals, like every bit of production, like all of it is one person. So that's why you've seen me write in a couple posts and stuff that I'm proud of the fact that I've been able to release, 5 feature-length documentaries in 6 years, or 74 minutes will be number 5 in the past 6 years. It's an absorbent amount of work. And what's really hard about it is I have self-imposed deadlines, right? So when I decide I'm going to release a film, I basically take a best guess in my mind of the time that it will take from start to finish to make it and release it. And sometimes that's a year out. And you work towards that goal. And you hope to God you can make it, and you use the things that you learned on the last film to try to adjust for this film. And it's always a somewhat of a roll of the dice because it really just depends on how good the film is and what else happens in your life in that time period. If I announce a film, it's always going to get made. Like that's going to happen, whether it takes years or whether it takes months. But when we give like a date and we're, whenever you hear me say like, here's a release date, rest assured, I'm actively making that movie because we have that release date, looming. Now it gets hard, obviously, as you get closer and closer and closer, when you feel like I could do so much better if I had more time. Now remember, every perfectionist is going to feel that way. Oddly enough, a great conversation I had with J.J. Abrams, of all people. Listen, he's not my buddy. I'm not like starfucking right now. I don't know him in that way. But oddly enough, I've ran into him 3 different times. And one time was on a plane. And it was right before we got on the plane. And he was doing the Star Trek film at that time. And I had actually given him American Ghost Hunter. And he asked me a few things about it, but I was honestly more excited about Star Trek and him doing it. And I started asking him things about it. And he started talking about deadlines. And I remember he said something to me, deadlines are horrible, but they're your biggest friend. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he basically said, because they will force you to make the best decision that you can make, given the resources that you have. And he goes, if left to your own devices, you'd probably never release a film because you'd be editing it forever, right? You'd always be wanting to do better and better and better, and you can't do that. Like, yeah, as an artist, you got to put stuff out. You got to get to a point where you say, I'm really stoked, and put it out. And I'm really stoked to be right at the end process with 74 minutes, which I'll tell you exactly what's going on with it right now. But it just dawned on me tonight how many things, man, have I battled with this film? First off, when I announced it, I started cutting it right away, and I felt like it had the right voice, but I wasn't really sure because, again, I didn't have anything to compare it to. And right when I got to the end of like the first draft of it, if you remember, that's when COVID hit. And essentially, it took away my ability to work on anything at length because Laura had to turn our house into a video village during the day. And she had to teach. And, obviously that became priority because she has no other option. But what it caused me to do is it caused me to take a long step away from watching what I had done. And probably 5 or 6 months into, COVID, during the lockdowns and all that, I pulled it back up and I watched the original cut. And there were so many good things about it, but it was not the right voice. It was just disjointed and it didn't feel fluid. And I was just like, what in the fuck was I doing? So, the best I could at night for 2 and 3 hour chunks, I started over. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to, start over and I'm going to edit this in a way that I've never done before, which is a totally disjointed 2 or 3 hour edit session a night, which is not the way that I would suggest editing. John, who asked me about editing earlier, this is not the way you do it, John. At least for me, when I sit down to really work on something, I got to get into it. I got to climb in that cave and really shut out the world and just focus on the storytelling aspects of making film. But I got all the way through a second version, and this time it was way too long and drony. And the thing is, you could take any one piece of evidence and talk about it for an hour, much less 40 pieces of evidence, So it was like, I already knew I was in the wrong path, and by the way, this process is somewhat normal for filmmaking. You got to find the right voice for that you're going to use to tell whatever the story is. So I basically, went back to the first cut, kept the things I liked, went to the second cut, kept those things that I liked, and then, right in June, when the pandemic kind of let up here in June, which is crazy, it wasn't that long ago. That's when I was like, okay, I'm going to redo this. It was like the third time. And I knew once I got into about, 15, 20 minutes of it and just watched that over, I knew that this was the right way. I mean, it was hitting on all cylinders and you can feel it. When things are right, they're right. And, I want, like all my films, I wanted this to be quick and moving, and I want people to be excited, and I want you to consume a lot but still have enough background on each thing. I wanted this to be a lean-in experience, which I had never done before. And what I mean by that is I want it to be a film that you literally lean into, that you plan on stopping it. You plan on rewatching clips over and over again. I wanted it to be that. I also did not want it to be some kind of paranormal sales pitch about ghosts being real, because that is not my goal. I've always said this at events too. It's not my desire, nor my job, nor does it even make sense that I would try to pitch somebody or sell them on the reality, or what I believe is the reality of ghosts. Okay, I don't want to make anybody believe in ghosts. But what I did want to do with this film is show you why I believe. And I think that's a totally contrary pitch to selling somebody, is to say, listen, it's not even of my interest to try to make you believe. I want to show you why I do. Uh, because the one thing I know, and I know this for a fact, it doesn't matter what I show you, in the sense that there's nothing I can give you that in your mind will wholeheartedly make you believe or disbelieve. Because unless you're in the moment, unless you experience all the things that cannot be captured on film. You know, when you watch a film, you can't feel the atmospheric thing that happens in the room for a split second before an object moves of its own accord. Like, I can't give you that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I can tell you about it, but I can't give it to you. So I can show you the truth, I can tell you the truth, I can present the truth, but I can't bring you in the room. You know, uh, I can't do that. So my goal with this was to just get somebody, in my headspace, and it's exciting. When you go to all these places and you wait for hours and hours and hours, man. That's the only downside to ghost hunting, is after spending over 3,000 hours ghost hunting, to only have roughly an hour worth of paranormal experience, 74 minutes worth. Yeah, that's a lot of time, that I'll never get back. Um, but I can tell you this, one of the wonderful things about watching this film and watching all the footage and kind of living it all is, guys, what a journey, man. What a journey it's been. Um, I'll get to that more in a second, but it's just, yeah, it's been crazy. So once I got, the film to the right place, there's a whole second thing going on right now, which is during the pandemic. As you guys know, uh, I was very fortunate. We got a 5-picture deal with Gravitas, which has become a real kind of, worldwide powerhouse distributor for documentaries since then as well. And they've been great with us, and they're going to release this film too. So for the first time ever, while making this film, I was also getting this film ready for clearance. And what I mean by that is, there is a massive process that you have to go through to release a film. I mean, from writing every spoken word down, in your script for closed caption, to all the legal clearances for music and sound effects, and the name and title search that lawyers have to do to make sure that you can use your name. There's just an ungodly process that goes on. Also, you got to prepare like a dozen different versions of the film with different technical specs, and the video specs have to be different than the audio specs, because every single platform, for some fucking reason, has different technical specs. I don't understand why there isn't just a standard HD codec that goes in, or a 4K codec that everybody uses. But for some reason, like Apple is different than Amazon, is different than Vudu, is different than HBO Max. Like, they're all different, and all of those I have to prepare on my end, which is just an incredible amount of rendering time. And so, anyways, this time that was going on as I've been working to finish up the film, and that ended up causing things to just take a little bit longer, and through nobody's fault. It's just the nature of doing this. So, like, I think it was 2 weeks ago, I had emailed everybody and said, listen, I'm waiting on this musical clearance. And it turned out that There was a song that I wanted to use that, to be honest, was just too expensive, and that's not the artist. But like some artists just believe um, in the upfront check more than they believe in the money that they make through promotion, which I don't really get that anymore. Not in today's world. I mean, unless you're Drake or something like that. But anyways, it was just there was no one did anything wrong. It was just what it was, and so I had to switch songs out and kind of re-edit this whole beginning, which was fine. I already had the song kind of picked that I was going to use, but again, this takes time. So I think I get to the end of the editing sequence, and I'm finally ready to celebrate and release everything, and then this happens. So I'm like, okay, I'll re-edit everything and I'll get it done. So I did, and then I'm like, okay, I'm all good. I'm in a great spot. Everything's going to be fine. I emailed everybody, said, look, I'm going to have it, knocked out here. Hang tight. And then Thanksgiving comes, and the day after Thanksgiving happens, my computer updates to Monterey, the new Mac software. And it does this overnight while I'm sleeping, of course. So I wake up and go to turn on my computer, and Final Cut has what's called project files. And to put it in layman's term, basically for each project you work on, it is a file that pretty much tells your computer where all the media is that you're using. Where's the videos, the audio, like all this stuff. And you need that to render out the film, the final version of the film. So I go to open up my Final Cut, and my project files, like all of them, won't open. And I am like, honestly, guys, losing the amount of stress that went over me. I was like, look, I have cut 3 versions of this thing. This is killing me. Like, what is going on? I knew I didn't ultimately lose the film because I made clone backups of everything, but I couldn't open Final Cut Pro. And I knew it was also probably from some third-party software that didn't update to the new Monterey, and I'm using it in conjunction with Final Cut. So I spend, 3 days, and this was just like last week, 3 days just losing my mind at a time where I should be, enjoying time with Laura and kind of relaxing. And I cannot get this thing to work. So I'm in pure panic mode. I finally get hold of Apple, and they set me up with their Mac Genius, in which I take my computer down there, drop it off for them to look at, and the following day they tell me, come in, we think we know what the issue is. In which, on my way in to get my computer, I get a flat tire. You can't make this shit up. I'm just like, oh my God, what is going on? Long story short, they did figure out the fix, and basically it was a third-party software. I've removed it, didn't really need it since then, but in the restore, it restored to a date before, like my last actual save date, which was before the date that it updated. So what this essentially means is that the very, very end edits of the project are not done. So I have to redo them. And this happened like last Thursday. So I have been on a ridiculous editing, just on the warpath to get this done, because it's like the final things. And at the very, I probably could have it done by morning if I just did not sleep the rest of the night, but I have a seriously important meeting tomorrow morning. So at the latest, it's probably going to be tomorrow night or 48 hours from now. It'll be ready to go out. And I cannot wait. And I guess I just wanted to let everybody know and thank you all for standing by me, because you guys have been amazing. The emails that you sent me in support of everybody just saying, yo, dude, like, calm down. We're good. We're super stoked to see this thing. We're with you. It makes me want to be more open with you guys about my life, because one of the things that I've always wanted to do with this podcast is be open, like be honest, be me. I see so much social media that is so fake that people are just not being real, and they're trying to pitch you this, these, I'm a perfect person and a perfect life and everything's amazing. And I'm not a perfect person. And I have a very blessed life, but it's not perfect. And there are struggles and things that I go through and things that filmmakers go through. And, I want to share it all with you guys. And I don't want to be afraid to do that. And that's what going through these kind of processes and getting your support back, it just makes me want to do that. It makes me want to be more real with you, and it just reminds me that that's what you want, that you want a real person. You want someone to say, when things aren't going good, and also when they are going good. And look, ultimately they are going good, because it comes back to what I told you about Thomas and I. The work, the work, the work. That's what matters, is that when this is all done, and whether it's tomorrow morning or Monday night or Tuesday night, when you watch this film, you love it. And that's what matters to me. And I know when I've made a film that is interesting and fun and exciting, and this is it. I am so stoked, guys, for you to see all of this, the way it's put together, the way it flows, the many different little stories that are in it. And you know what's really cool? There's evidence on here, new things that I discovered of going back. It's amazing how when you step away sometimes, your focus changes, and the way you look at things and the way you view things changes. And there's a couple clips on here, an EVP that I discovered in one of the clips that is amazing, and it's, you'll know exactly what it is when you get to it. It actually took place in Waverly Hills, but yeah, there's stuff from Paranormal State that you saw part of it on TV, but you didn't see the full story. There's stuff from My House in Persia, from the Stanley, from Chillingham, like all the all the big places that we love to see footage from. But then there's also, stuff from, Suicide Bridge and Lake Conneaut. And I mean, there's just so much stuff in here. And it's all really, really compelling. And, when you watch it as a whole, and when I watched it as a whole, the thing that I got out of it is this journey that I've been on. Unless someone went on this journey, like, this couldn't exist. Like this tale of the tape, right? This 30-year story that shows that back in 1992, the same exact things that were being documented are being documented now. And that's the consistency. It's always been there. These things we call the paranormal, it's always been around us. It's always been happening. To the people who are willing to open up and consider the fact that there is more to this world than we know. And it makes such a profound argument for the reality of ghosts without attempting to. And that's what I think you guys will love about this. And just the spook factor is awesome. There's just a ton of evidence here. And yeah, it's really good. I'm really stoked for you guys to see it. Also, know that, when it's released, and let's say, I put it out Tuesday, there's only going to be about a window that it's going to be out. Because it goes off to Gravitas. So there's about a 1-month window that it will be available for people to see. And as I promised before, whether you bought the DVD or whether you bought the on-demand version from Vimeo On Demand, you're all going to get, anybody who's made a purchase because of the COVID delays and all this stuff, you're all going to get both. So you're going to get an email with your private link to watch 74 minutes. So be looking, in your email in the next 48 hours, be looking in your email. and you're going to get that link to it. And then give it a couple weeks from the release date for the DVDs to come in and to be autographed and to be sent out. If you guys want to purchase right now and you want to be ready to go and you want to make sure that you're the first to see this thing while you can, I'll put the link in the description for the Vimeo on demand package with the DVD. And all I can tell you guys, if you've been waiting on this film, it will deliver. I promise you. And it doesn't matter if Murphy and all his laws have been working against us, because that just tells me, man, it's worthwhile. Nothing great is easy. Nothing that matters is really easy. And this has been a serious challenge. And that's one of the most beautiful things about independent filmmaking. A lot of times on here, I feel like I seem negative when people ask me about it, and I'm like, oh, this is hard, and that's hard, and this is hard, and yes, it is hard. It's all very, very hard, and so are a million other jobs in life. But I don't know that a million other jobs are as rewarding, personally, as it is when a film is complete. When you look on the final cut, edit line, and there's 1,000 cuts, and there's this, representation of this effort that's been there. And when I look at a film like this, that's, 20 some years, almost 30 years in the making, when you know that there's nothing else like it, and when it's part of it's like a legacy. When my dad passed away, I remember just thinking there was more from his life, because we kind of, like anybody, when they pass away, you divvy up their stuff, and I wish there was more, because when we pass away, when it's that time, like right before we go, and I think about this often, and I've thought about it more since my father passed away, but when we go, the only thing that's going to matter, it's not going to be what car you drive or how big is your house, or, just look, you're going to have the memories you made with the people you love and the lives you touched along the way. That's your legacy. That's your legacy. And I think that's what's so rewarding in making films. Not just for me, like the people that are in these films. Like when I look back in 74 minutes and I see all the different people that I investigated with, and I look around and I realize that everybody in my life, everybody was involved in this journey and in some way was on this paranormal path with me. And I discovered so many friendships and met so many people that I care about so much. And together we experienced shit that blew our mind and left us in these supernatural conversations that could go on for eternity, that are so rewarding. And when I look at that adventure, this crazy adventure that we've been on, it's all worth it. It's all worth it. And when you finish a film, it's the same thing. You look at what it took to get it out there in the world, what it took to make it, to live it, to edit it, to battle through, to get to that place. I was thinking about this last night. I have this, I know this isn't sexy, but one of the reasons Laura is always not wanting me to edit really, really long hours is, I have this vascular disease, and it causes my feet to swell. And it's something I could take care of, and I just got to be really conscious about it. but I can't kind of mess around with it. And last night, after like some 20 hours editing or something crazy, and this is after doing like a 36-hour edit, 3 or 4 days ago, my feet were swollen last night. And when that happens, I got to go in and get a shot that'll bring the swelling down. And I was thinking about all of this last night. Putting the pressure on myself to make it perfect and get it out the moment that I want to get it out. But the second it leaves my hand, is it good enough? Or what if people don't like it? And like all you go through. And then when I got home, Laura was in bed and it was quiet. It was just after midnight. And I watched it all again, just from start to finish. And I guess that's what I would leave with you. I hope you all see this film for what it represents. I mean, look, as far as a paranormal film goes, it's great, and I think you guys will really love it. I really do. It is an incredible conversation piece for the existence of ghosts. But I hope that you see the beauty in it. How many people had to, cross paths all over the world. And everybody's on this journey trying to find out, what is all this stuff? What are we? Like, we're on this ball flying through, the universe, and is there a creator? Like, who made us, and where do we go? And what are these things that I experience? And why, when someone passes away, do I still feel a presence at times with them? And that's the journey we're all on. And why are sometimes these things negative? And why do they want to hurt people? And what is that evil? And what is good? And are there true manifestations of both? Like, all of these questions. That's the journey, man, that we were all on, and are still on. That's the beauty of what created this film. So, look, I love you guys, man. I'm back. Don't think for a second that the Undercrowded Room podcast is going to be, is going to fade away. It's only going to get stronger from here. I have a lot of ideas and things that I want to do. We're still driving away to, on Patreon, people are doing amazing. We're getting closer and closer to being able to hire an editor to work on the podcast specifically, which, like I said, man, it will be a celebratory day. And it's coming soon because you guys have continued to support the podcast, which is incredible. So I hope if you haven't seen 74 Minutes, I hope that you will. Like I said, I'm going to stay up tonight and just kill the edit to just put these last little, patches on. And if I'm able to stay up till morning, then it'll be done right then. If not, I got a full day of meetings tomorrow, so it'll probably be the following day at the latest. So that's, Tuesday? Yeah. So I can't wait. I'll let you guys know. Obviously, you'll see me screaming from the high heavens on all my social media. I got a bunch of podcasts that I'm doing coming up, including a couple really, really big ones. So I will let you guys know when that happens. And 74 Minutes, it's coming, man. It is going to blow your mind. Like I said, if you have not got your copy of it yet and you want to see it, the second it comes out, you'll just be emailed the link with your password. Vimeo on demand. You could watch it on television. You could watch it on your tablet, your phone. It takes like 2 clicks, and you'll be watching it in perfect HD. This is also the last film that we're going to do any kind of bigger run of DVDs, and we're only doing 200 with this. We did 100, and people wanted more. So there's probably maybe 30 or 40 left of actual DVDs that you can get. In the future, we'll maybe do, honestly, like 50, guys, just because it really is an extra added process. But I know people love the autographed sentiment of having something physical. But like I said, if you haven't, gotten your 74 minutes DVD and Vimeo on demand pass. The links are in the description below. I love you guys. Thanks for having my back. I will see you guys very soon, and more podcasts are to come. I can promise you that. I'll be back soon with more. All the best.